Hello and welcome back to Core Finance, and we're looking at the dollar. Let's have a look at this US dollar, two alternative scenarios.
Actually, Matt, I wonder if you can remember, about early September, I think it was an interview with yourself that I talked about the dollar, and what I was saying at the time, if you recall, Matt, was that the insiders, the smart money, as you correctly pointed out, the smart money were heavily buying the US dollar and also heavily short on the euro, obviously inverse the dollar. And obviously, I think my timing was probably a little bit early at the time. Having said that, though, I repeated this warning last week with Nick, and it seems that finally we're getting that coming to fruition. I've got two scenarios here on the US dollar, two different wave counts. And this is the thing with Elliott wave theory. Sometimes you get two different alternative scenarios. We don't usually know which one is the correct scenario until a bit later. So I've got scenario one, and I'll tell you my own preferred scenario. And you can actually have your own opinion on this too, Matt, if you like. The first one on the left, scenario one, is that the downward move or trend we've had in the US dollar has actually been a wave three.
Understood.
And for folks who are not familiar with Elliott wave theory, that is usually the strongest part of a wave. What people also should remember, following a wave three, you have the correction, wave four, which that could be the case, ABC correction, wave four. What that also means is that if this is just a wave 4 correction, it means that the next potential move on the dollar is a wave 5, which is a continuation move to potentially take out the lows, or indeed retest the lows of September. That's one potential scenario. I don't actually prefer this particular scenario. I think that's incorrect. So I actually prefer the second scenario. I should just say, if this scenario one is correct, then look for a move down to retest the previous lows to form wave 5, and then we'll form that potential bottom. Maybe a double bottom.
On the dollar index.
Exactly. Maybe a double bottom will form, and then maybe a new trend will develop.
Understood.
Now, I don't think that's correct. I think scenario two is correct. Number one, we know that why do I think the scenario two is correct? Number one, we know that smart money has been heavily bullish on the dollar.
Yes.
We are at support, major support. I talked about with Nick, we were on the previous 2016 lows, 92, I think that was, 91, 92. We've got divergence on the chart. We're certainly seeing some momentum here as well. And to me, just the Elliott wave count makes sense to me. You know, we've got 1, 2, 3, and this is potentially the beginning of the third wave in the dollar. And of course, sentiment has been heavily bearish on the dollar, which is bullish for dollar going forward. So yeah, that is my preferred scenario. Now, for this scenario to be correct, if we see a pullback, which I think we probably will see a pullback, back to the 38.2 and 61.8% retracement, in other words, back to 92.6, $92 levels. If we see a pullback to those levels, which by the way can be used as buying opportunities for folks who want to go long on the dollar, we need to hold these levels. We need to hold at 92 level. If we don't, then likely that scenario one is correct. But I personally think that this is the correct scenario. Scenario two, pullback followed by a continuation move higher. What's your view, Matt, on this one?
I would go with the second one. I think I'm seeing higher highs, higher lows in the dollar. I think fundamentally it looks stronger. I think it's been oversold. Medium term, though, I'm not a fan of the dollar. I think medium to long term, I think it's going to go
By medium term,
lower.
do you think that the dollar would, by the end of the year, will go back to its
I'm thinking more 6 months. So towards the end of the year, I think it will increase. So hence scenario two. But then,
do you have any targets?
On the dollar index, I would say up to 95. I'm going to be quite bullish. I think it's
so I would agree with this projection. That's interesting. I like that. Of course, another thing we need to consider is the fact that the euro itself has been going down. So that any pressure, any further downside pressure on the euro is going to put some more upward pressure on this as well. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that one. So
good stuff. Well, that's what may or may not make a market, but we'll see in a few weeks.
Okay. Thanks.
In the meantime, Alessio, thank you very much.